I I was asked why I wrote my song Liberation the other day, and honestly, it took me some time because how do I explain like the feeling of just always being a nigger in America? You know what I mean? Like regardless of the things you do, the ways you show up, the ways that you step up and like serve. All it takes is one stigma, bias amongst a resume of greatness or a history of sweet to be reduced to just that. Having everything that you are that's outside of a box reduced to just that, being a nigger. Something so small, something reduced in every capacity. You know? This is something that's a shared experience and it's one of marginalization, and it pisses me off every single day. And it was to the point in the past where I was smoking my frustration, my grief, my depression, anxiety, and every other feeling, trying to like work through it, but at the same time manage because it was so hard to know so much that was going on in my day to day life, as well as going around in the world at the same time, and also know that I had little to like no power at the time to do anything. And so, that said, with knowledge of the tragedies of like my day to day lives and the interactions I have with people and the things that go on in their lives, and knowledge of stuff that happens outside of myself and outside of my state in countries where like my family lives or like outside of there, you know what I mean? Like to see people so reduced to something so small when people are so much more than they already even know, being reduced to something that small of just being a nigger, right? Like it just pisses me off, you know what I mean? Like it's like upsetting because it's so much all like at once, and there's so many different concepts that come into play, like the idea like colonialism, right? Like the pervasiveness of that, the matrix of domination and how that intertwines to create a net of discrimination that just traps us and forces us in a cage of our own mental as well as like institutional. It's just, gosh, that's why I wrote Liberation, because liberation is just a call out to, well, really a cry for something better and for us to do something, because culture doesn't change unless we internally change. We expect these systems to change, but we're not willing to change in ourselves, and half the time we don't even believe that we can. Truthfully, truthfully. Because a lot of people really just think they're damned. And I understand. And I understand why people have to cope. And I understand why I had to cope. And I forgive myself for it. And I forgive you for it. But at the end of the day, all this stuff that we do to cope is never going to do the thing that we need. Which is we need healing. Because if we can internally heal, then we can heal interpersonally. And if we can do that to heal interpersonally, then we can do that to heal at the local level, to build more of a sense of unity and community and solidarity for real, for real. But we can't do that without each other. You see what I'm saying? And so, how can we change at the top level when we're not able to change at the most micro, minuscule of levels? When they're all the same by the interconnected laws of nature. I wrote Liberation because it's so hard to discuss the abstract connection of every single part of existence and how these unpolitical aspects of living, despite politics just being life, especially just being a minority, you can't help but be involved in politics whether you like it or not, because your existence is just political for being here. How can we not address these minuscule things? Because if we don't, then we're not going to address these large things. It's the exact same reason why. Because the principle carries in every context, right? Colonialism's effects, the pervasiveness of it, the violation of boundary, of law, of people happens. And then we wonder why we have to do a lot of healing and therapy, and also learn to set up boundaries and learn how to embrace that, because a country has literally been founded on the foundation of that same pervasiveness, right? We have to decolonize our minds and deconstruct our thoughts in order to get what we really want for ourselves and for the world. But that takes liberating your mind from the three-dimensional thinking and conditioning that we have been taught and raised amongst, that causes so much fear when we push that box and the boundaries of. Because it's really that deep. But you can't just talk about it literally. You have to talk about it in abstractions. So, liberation is a tie of that abstraction. Line by line. There's not a single thing that's said in there that is unintentional. Likewise to other songs. But this is where liberation comes from. It comes from my revolutionary heart that's wanted transformation throughout my whole life, that has been alleged for crimes that I have not committed, that has been discriminated against because of the truth that I will spit and say, regardless of whatever else happens to me. I almost was going to go to jail last year. You know why? Because I told folks that I will stand in my truth. Take me to jail, because my word is bond, and I will hold it. Because I'll be damned if I let fear rule me in a world that wants you to be in fear and stay in that fear state. So, this is just the iceberg of why I wrote Liberation and what inspired me to write it. But it's so much more. Thank you for asking the question. I appreciate and love you. Peace to you.